Welcome back to the OPL. We see Pentanet.gg picking up a huge win there, Rusty, and maybe not in the way that we would have thought because a better early game, but still some mid-game troubles.
Yeah, this is kind of like the Pentanet that we saw last year. I would hazard an opinion towards because they struggled in their mid-game a lot of the time. They were renowned for doing the nothing for quite a substantial amount of time and then just coming into their own in the late game. But this game was super interesting because they were so far ahead early, which goes against the grain of what you'd expect, right? But with that lead, once again, they slow the game down to a halt, and I would say they gave a couple too many chances to their opponents of AV in this one, and Chaz in particular lapped up those chances and tried his best.
Yeah, it's very rare that when you're on a losing team that you can honestly say, I probably didn't deserve to lose that game. But Chaz probably didn't deserve to lose that one, Juice.
No, Chaz can, hold his head up high in a game like that. Potentially, there's things he could work on in terms of like map movements and whatnot. But for the most part, you look at that game, you think Chaz did everything he could do. It just felt like Pentanet were just that one step ahead, catching out his teammates many a times. And this is something that I think Pabu really brings to this Pentanet roster is that, and half the reason he's transitioned from top lane to the jungle is because in top lane it's very isolated. You can't really shot call and make plays around the map unless you're teleporting, and that's pretty much a 5-minute window. But we can see Pabu very active in the early game, wanting to make things happen, and this is where Pentanet most of their success were this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly a player that lacks hesitation.
Yeah.
Definitely decisive in his calls. However, guys, we are going to get into our next game of the night. It's going to be it's Order going to be going up against Direwolves. This was the game where Order were reverse swept in the gauntlet after the hour pause. And Skimmy, I believe you were casting this one. Good to see the rematch taking place.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, obviously a lot's happened since then. I'm sure if you were a viewer at that time, it looked all things Order, right? They were crushing 2-0. That big pause came out. Maybe a chance for Direwolves to reset. They came back in and, as you said, went for the crushing 3-2 reverse. But, a few things have changed since then. You look over to some of the bans, the picks. Ornn used to be a namestate, permanently banned by Direwolves, regardless if they were first pick or not, blue or red side. It did not seem to matter. The flip side of that is Order religiously ban away this Olaf. They just don't seem to care. Against Direwolves, it's unique to this team. They know that the jungle and the top lane can play it. I think for me, the biggest excitement factor has to be the battle of the scaling mids, right? Hayri and Shock both love to go for the likes of Azirs, Cassio, Piers, but then there's that case for the likes of Corkies as well to come into the fold of things. So I feel like whichever mid laner comes online first, much like what we saw there with Chaz and Getback doing, really puts their team in the driving seat.
And Jules, when we have a look at this game, both Order and Direwolf so far have been wildly inconsistent in the OPL. How do you think that this game plays out with these two teams?
Well, this is the game that I'm the most excited about today. I know we have our Classico and things like that, but for me, this really highlights a clear, third team. I know Order did lose to AV last week, but I mean, these two teams with the names on them, how could you not? I really feel like Direwolves in the top side of the map, they play a lot better, more fluent together as a team. Whereas I think the Order bot lane has stepped up a little bit this split as compared to last split. And I know that's something Order have worked very hard on during the off-season. So, I think it's kind of two polar opposite play styles, right? Vital's very happy to just be there, get farm, and do damage in the mid game, where Order are more than happy to play through mid, transition to bot, and get things going. So have to see which side breaks open the map first.
And when I look at these teams, and something that has actually changed, and you pointed out some of that for Order as well, is Swiper's a farming monster now. And that kind of came out of nowhere for him this year. And like Chippies is the type of player that always feels like a feast or famine style at the moment. His last game being a 0-7 Gangplank was the perfect example of a famine and a half.
Yeah.
But I think Swiper's now in a position where he can punish in a 1v1 incredibly hard if that were to happen again. And I don't think that Chippies would want to take this game lightly against someone who's playing Renekton at every opportunity and doing well with it. Like, this may well be a Bruiser-style top lane that we'll get to see. And that gets me even more excited for this particular matchup because maybe we veer away from tanks.
Well, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm very critical of Swiper when things go wrong, and it's been him that's been in the wrong. But I think Swiper, for me, has had most top laners' numbers in terms of 1v1 and laning in the last few weeks or few months even. So whatever he's done to kind of resurge the laning phase and be known as almost like the top lane titan, you're going to have to come through me and 1v1 me. He probably, the last time around, had Chippy's number as well. So maybe a little bit of revenge for Chippy's. But Swiper, for me, is a sleeper agent to keep my eyes on in this game.
And the last role we kind of haven't spoken of is going to be Mir going up against Only. I actually think that a lot of the inconsistency from both of these lineups does stem from the jungle position.
Yep.
Only got figured out, I think, by Babip in their game versus Legacy. I think Mir is a very camp-heavy style jungler, and he is playing in a tempo-style meta, Juves. You've had situations like this yourself personally as a jungle, where if the meta doesn't suit your style, you need to play very good League of Legends to make it work.
You know, and the one thing I would say about Only is that I think he's trying to compensate to his style to help the team, right? In the sense that when I knew Only was the tempo style jungler, right? Clear camp to camp, be really far ahead of the enemy, make that one high impact play, and then blow the game open, right? Last few weeks when we see Order, have those losses, Only's been more trying to compensate towards lanes and play kind of more of a gank heavy style when he's on things like Graves. And that doesn't necessarily work, not for him, not for Graves the champion. Whereas we see Mer do, he likes to put pressure on the lanes and at the detriment sometimes to himself because he does get punished for that. So I think what we need to see is these junglers just go back to their roots and what works for them, because I think the jungle is in a position right now where you can put the jungle on cooldown and farm for tempo, but you can also get your lanes ahead and you won't be too punished. I think it's really just coming down to stop playing for what you think you need to do and play for what works for you.
It's a self-discovery thing for me when I look at it, right? Like knowing what your limit is more than anything else for those points that you mentioned. Like for Mir, he does like to be selfless. He does like to go towards top lane, but knowing when you can say no and say, I actually have to do camps or we lose the game is probably the thing that I would look at. And a similar thing for Only, right? Knowing when to just play for himself, continue to get those farm leads and scale, and knowing when to play for his lanes. I think it's that actual limit that we need to really observe for them, because too far in either way is very clearly bad for these teams.
Absolutely could be the case, guys. We do have a little bit of a game delay, but in the meantime, actually have some exciting news outside of League of Legends. This is going to be the first announcement of Oceania's first Valorant Ignition Series event actually happening, presented by Logitech G and Order. As the global Valorant Ignition Series gets underway, we're excited to announce the first of two massive Oceanic stops, the Oceanic Valorant Open. And it promises to be an epic open format tournament with $10,000 worth of prize pool on the line and a laser focus on developing the local competitive grassroots ecosystem. The tournament will field teams from a 3-round Swiss format open qualifier designed for up to 1,000 teams from Australia and New Zealand. The open qualifier runs from the 3rd of July to the 13th. From the top 16 teams emerging will duke it out in a double elimination group stage into a single best of 3 playoff format, with the grand final taking place on Sunday, the 26th of July. All stages and tournament will be streamed on Order's Twitch channel, as well as some of the other community channels around in Oceania, using the best of a diverse group of talent. Community casters can also apply to cast games as well with a custom asset pack. So make sure that you head over and check this out. Should have been tweeted out at about 5 o'clock. And guys, I know you've all been involved in Valorant so far. Good to see OS getting its first big tournament.
Yeah, it's huge,
absolutely.
man.
As Rusty, I'm sure is going to say, I think it sort of showcases the amount of outcry of people just really excited for this game. You know, something new, something fresh on the blocks, and to have that much money thrown in on a debut event shows that people are keen to play.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, Skibby, was that I'd be very excited to enter the tournament if it's an open entry, but it actually coincides with some OPL days. So maybe that opportunity's gone for us. Juves, I know we were tearing up the ranked.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to drop my resume in, and if I do know anyone that potentially is involved or knows anyone that is hosting the tournament, then maybe I can get a reference check of some sort and potentially get myself to cast some of those events.
Yeah, you actually got to fill out the form there, mate.
Yeah, got to fill out the form, boys.
Yep. Take your ticket, stand in line there.
What do you mean? I got to fill out a form as well. Let's not pretend that I'm organising this event. I'm not Mr. Order. That would be Inve. However, guys, getting back to this one, heard that it's going to be a couple of minutes to Champions Select. So I want to put you on the spot again. Juve, Skimmy, you got it right the first time around. So we're going to start with Rusty. Rusty, who wins this game and why?
I still think I had my logic right the first one. Unfortunately, didn't go the way that I planned. Order and Direwolves, I think so much of this, again, comes down to early game. I'm going to pick the Direwolves but I'm saying this on the basis that they'll play a lot better around their top and their jungle roles. If they're able to actually control the early game with those two in mind, if it's a Malphite that goes to bot lane, so be it, right? I think Vital's been playing decently well at the moment. But you can't go 0-7 at a weak side top lane player against Order. I think they'll punish you too hard. So I'm trusting that they'll fix that.
Okay, Skimmy.
Yep, to continue your point, I think Direwolves will probably take this one out, given the fact that they've, especially with Decoy coming back into the bot lane, they've rediscovered their success of we just draft aggressive, we make sure that Vital has kill threat with the likes of Leonas, Nautiluses, you name it, right? They're going to be aggressive, they're going to look for some strength there, maybe look for the farm, but maybe look for fights. On the flip side of that, Rare's obviously in some really impressive form, kind of disciplined himself from going for those crazy montage plays into more of, I want to force fights, and Ayla is in the form of his life as well. Sometimes goes 0-2, hits a power spike, pretends he's an 0-10 Yasuo, and just tears it up. So I think it's going to be really close, but I think Direwolves have a slight edge.
And Juves?
Yeah, I'm going with Order for the win, actually, because I think it's very hard sometimes to recover from a really rough week. Going 0-7 in the top side of the map, sometimes it's hard to, get the mental reset. But also, I've been watching a lot of the Order Army content this week, and I think Rare 7 has filled me with a lot of confidence that there's going to be an absolute belter of a game coming out of the bot side of the map. So I'm going with the Order Army.
All right, we'll see whether that's the case. Guys, that is a game we have for you. After this break, we're going to bring you Order versus the Direwolves. Stick around.
So I haven't versed Direwolves since we lost them in the Gauntlet, which was a reverse sweep, which never comes easy. Something that really rubbed me the wrong way was Shock. In our last game when they were beating us, they took us out in like a Baron fight, and he typed in all chat the wrong neighborhood, which is a bit of a meme, but for me it's pretty bad sportsmanship and something that it still makes me angry thinking about it. So getting revenge against him will feel very good. Like, I do like the Direwolves roster, but just based off that one comment, it's made me want to beat them like more than anyone.
Green gets a triple, lands the hook, a two-man play and a box, but Red picks them up as an easy snipe from afar, shut down.
We have to get our revenge.
You're versing only from Order. What are your thoughts on him?
He gonna play like some tanker jungler, so I'm not that excited to verse him.
Solar Flare starts things off, but it's going to get negated, but it is all Ballon in! Vital says hello! The Mega Down to 4! It's set 2.0! Only will find Decoy again, but it's a double kill onto Vital's account! And they are chasing members, double kills for the boys!
The matchup against Swipe is going to be a bloodbath because he's the armored titan and he never gives up. So I'm quite excited to get another game against him.
What are your thoughts about versing Rare 7 from Order this week?
Oh, I think Ayla's one of the better supports in the region. He's been playing pretty well this year, but I'm confident going into the weekend versing Order. Harry plays pretty well in scrims, but he hasn't had a good stage performance so far this split, so kind of just not sure which Harry will show up, but I think it'll be a good match.
And here we are jumping into the Macca's Champs Select for our second game of the day. A big one at that to once again break the lockdown. That is these teams stuck and joined at the hip, if you will, in third place contention. As you can see from the video there, no love lost between these two teams, but there is a lot on the line, obviously, in the sense that they definitely respect their opponents. It's really a case of who shows up on the day.
Yeah, and I mean, both teams, right? 3-3. So if you have to ask who's showing up on the day, well, it's just split 50-50. And so can we put this game down to a little bit of a coin flip, Skinny?
Certainly is. And what's so interesting straight off the bat, right, is the adaptation to say, okay, we are still going to go back to styles of old, which is we're going to ban on blue side, but also the fact that we're getting a Syndra first pick. And every single time it's been a Syndra first pick, we've always had it be a flex. But what is interesting on that side note is that Vital has never played a mage in the bot lane. So whether or not that is something spicy they have prepared here for today, potentially something to keep your eyes on.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like I said to you yesterday, I don't think you're going to be first picking Syndra if it's not a flex, because Syndra loses so much value if it isn't going to, you know, played in 2 positions. So, funnily enough though, Mir was saying that Only is going to be picking a tank jungler against him, and you know, we have the Trundle first pick. Obviously not too concerned about anything that Mir's going to play in terms of countering it, like something like the Kindred, like the Nidalee, but
yeah,
Aphelios being locked in. I think this might be Vital's most played, something that he's really comfortable on, and it's honestly something that I'm surprised teams still give him, because we've just seen so many 1v9 performances coming out of him on that champion. But locking in the Ezreal, so interestingly enough, I was watching an LCK interview, I can't remember which ADC it was, but they were getting a lot of stick for trading Ezreal for Aphelios, and the consensus in Korea is that Ezreal actually beats Aphelios because you just play at range, and Aphelios can never really get access to the team fight. But ultimately, in a lot of other regions, it's genuinely sometimes just a little bit of head ramming, and Aphelios turns into a season 10 demon. But with the way that Ezreal builds, can keep Aphelios and most champions at range.
Certainly can, and we've seen a lot of those situations where they find advantages before the BF sword comes online and then look to play that more slow, concise manner of Sheen, Tier getting involved, mid-game come online with the 2-item spike and hope to be ahead of the BF sword critical strike variation. But what is interesting for me, as you say, yes, we've got the tank jungler coming out here with the Trundle, but there's a big similarity between both Only and Mirror's hero pool in that they both love to go for the Lee Sin. I was wondering if we'd get a Jarvan, as it is a pick that Miru has relied upon in times of old for great ganking success. Is going to go for that instead, however, so going to have some very strong early game focus, and for the second time, I believe, it's going to be Harry rocking out with the Yasuo, a pocket pick he's shown and one that he's found great success with.
Yeah, and it's weird because Yasuo kind of counters Syndra, but also doesn't, in the sense that, like, Yasuo can outplay Syndra, you know, use the wind wall to block the Unleash Chaos or majority of Syndra's damage, but also in the same sense, right, like, there's a lot of stuff that Yasuo's kit can't block, so it does become some sort of like a mini skill matchup, and which jungler plays best around mid lane.
Now, I really do like these second bans that are coming in now, targeting towards those enchanting supports that can buff up their AD carries to find good success. That is Lulu. That's then perma priority there with the Karma, the Fresh as well. Both are fantastic. We've seen how many times Ayla has just crushed it as the Fresh. But then the Rumble as well. I don't believe we've seen Order use it as a support, but it definitely is a pocket pick that Swiper is not afraid to use.
No, and Swiper does have a few of these pocket picks, right? You know, picks up the Rumble, plays things like that. You know, Renekton, we're kind of seeing, you know, fall out of the meta, but it's definitely a big sweeps pick. You know, as soon as Renekton has any form of relevance, you can bet your money that Swiper's going to be on that pick. Braum, Ezreal, blind pick, blind into lane. Rakan is a good champion picked into the Braum, so Rakan generally scales quite well. Braum doesn't really have enough lockdown to keep Rakan still, so something that we see picked when Braum's picked, and scary bot lane that Direwolves have locked in.
Certainly is. It's definitely has some kill pressure, and it's going to be looking to lock them in place with a ton of CC. And that's only going to go further with Wukong now being locked in here, as you'd imagine to be Chippy's option for the blind matchup in the top side of the map. Braum obviously going to give themselves the ability to lock members in place and guarantee that Harry can find value with his ultimate. But where does Swiper want to go with this one? He's going to opt into the Mordekaiser. Deathrealm could prove invaluable for not only denying some gank pressure, but also finding success to make a numbers advantage in team fights.
Yeah, and they for sure needed some magic damage with their composition, right? You can't have Ezreal as, you know, there's not enough AP in Ezreal's kit to be relevant enough so that Tabis and armor items become mega efficient. But one cute interaction I want to keep my eye on in this draft is the pillar gank at level 6. So if Trundle lands the pillar onto Syndra, which pretty much is a given at all times, then Yasuo can ulti off that, and potentially we see Syndra run into a little bit of trouble. But my assumption is that Syndra will take the phase rush, potentially can get herself out of dodge, but you know, it's not necessarily what we thought we would see, right? You know, Ezreal Braum isn't a lane that says, hey, come play around bot lane, we're going to kill them 2v2. Whilst Direwolves probably have the more aggressive of the two, so might be one of those games we see the jungle mids really take over the game.
Certainly is, and I think one good adaptation is the fact that Vital has barely played the Callista, but Rare is a big fan of it, and hence why it got banned away. Obviously a pick that we know gets so much success in the early stages, and it's a pick that he likes to try and snowball with. So they've kind of forced him into this case of, let's go down the line, take away the Varus, the Callistas, let's go on to these comforts, be it the Aphelios and the Ezreal, and say, kind of to your point, and you mentioned as to what they're doing in the LCK, trust in our instincts, trust in our ability, play a bit more passively, but farm from afar, and make that transition into the mid-game the absolute best case scenario for us.
Yeah, and both comps, I think, really speak wonders about how these teams have historically played the game, right? You know, what we thought we might see Chippy's on like the Volibear or the Ornn, bans that away, takes the Wukong. You know, he's not necessarily, it's not a tank, but more of a bruiser, but really has the ability to carry from the top side of the map, right? Picking the Aphelios and the Rakan, can stay safe, can just farm. And so these compositions from both sides is really what we thought we would get, right? You got the Swiper on the Mordekaiser being kind of known for that weak side Titan, able to be really self-sufficient and survive on his own. And what a better champ to do that than Mordekaiser.
Certainly is, as here we jump into our second game of the day in the OPL for week number 4 with Direwolves on the left side and Order on the right. And what's interesting, once again, going back to that draft, is the fact that I imagine it to be a big showdown between both these mid laners. And obviously, Direwolves believe the same by the fact that they locked in Shock Syndra as their first pick, but they showed no respect bans towards Order. I was wondering if we'd get the likes of Azirs, maybe LeBlanc's taken away, but Harry says, look, I've got the pick of the litter. I can choose anything I want. Opts for the Yasuo, and they build a comp around it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very volatile 2v2, right? And this is why I say that we're potentially going to see so much emphasis on this mid lane. I will say, however, I think the onus and the early game proactivity is really in the favor of Direwolves, right? Syndra level 1, level 2 is going to always be pushing in that Yasuo. Lee Sin wants to be aggressive as well, and the Trundle-Yasuo synergy doesn't really come to fruition until level 6. And so Direwolves have, you know, that whole window of opportunity to play around, whether that's counter jungling camps, being aggressive, or just setting up plays in the top side of the map, because Mordekaiser is also that one champion that you have access to pre-level 6. So wouldn't be surprised if we see Mir try to do something top side.
And that is what we'd like to see. We saw how much it was important for junglers to find a lead in game 1 here today, and how it was able to get their laners online and find success that could really turn the tide of a fight in terms of tempo, in terms of pressure, in terms of when they want to actually try and force some kind of comeback condition. And Direwolves no doubt will be looking to try and tap into some of that potential. Decoy still going for the aggressive nature, despite not going for the conventional tank of Leona. Rakan obviously no slouch to the engaged department.
No. And, you know, arguably one of Decoy's most played and best champions, right? And we can see already Nia looking for the invade, has, you know, the heads up that only is going to be going for that full clear. And, you know, when you're playing against the likes of the Lee Sin, this full clear is quite greedy because you run into the risk of this. However, important to note, Nia is level 2, so if only can get there quick enough, potentially see a fight.
Hang on a minute, because this is kind of scary. Okay, top lane has priority. Chippies can respond. Mid lane is even at this stage. He's already got double buffs, and now he's going to steal away red buff. It is successful. Only's going to go, where on earth was my red buff? He's going to jump away to the golems themselves, and he has just got away with an insanely strong early game.
Yeah, and this is just really greedy clearing from Only and really heads up from there. Obviously, probably studied some VODs, knows what he's going to do. We might see a 3-man in the mid.
3-man Pincer, there's nowhere to turn. He doesn't have a cleanse, does not have the flash unless he needs to use it. So late on, the exhaust comes out there from Decoy, and that's first blood.
And this is what happens when you blind Braum in the bot lane, right? Rakan just able to get this priority move, level 2 into mid lane. Aphelios unpunished, as well as Mir coming in after pretty much showing in the top side of the map, right? Like, Hayri had to have the idea that Lee Sin was coming from there, but I think this is just the draft. This is playing out how we've seen the draft, right? You know, having priority in lanes and being able to utilize this priority to influence mid lane.
Certainly is. I mean, we were talking about the lane priority in mid and top, but also in the bottom side as well. They just have so much kill for it in the free lane collapse. I mean, there really was nowhere to go. Unfortunate there that Harry burned that flash. Now going to make him even more vulnerable for those ganks. But the sequence of plays in those first few minutes, beautiful here by Direwolves. Now, how can Order try and turn things around? You can see Only recalling in bottom try, but Decoy will spot things out. Now he's still going to look for the gank. The pillar is available. They have their sights set here
double
on Vital,
TP.
but Decoy's there on peeling protection. Double TP's come on in. Direwolves want to force this early game. The stun connects. Ayla can do nothing but fall on down and make sure that Rare and Only get out of harm's way.
Yeah, and it's just so proactive from the Direwolves, right? It's almost like they know that gank is coming, and they're just hovering on those minions, waiting for them to commit, and once they do, double TP coming on through, and it's really not that bad. Mir farms minions instead, so it's not like any of these minions are going to waste, and Swiper wasn't able to push top wave in quick enough so that Wukong misses too many, right? He's probably going to make it back for that cannon, so worst case scenario for Chippies is he loses one minion but picks up a kill.
One minion for the kill to allow Wukong to be an absolute terror. We've seen Wukong's in the jungle, but a Wukong in a solo lane is a completely different beast to try and handle. And you give them a couple of items and they can just steamroll over the fight, lock you in place, CC after CC. Very little outplay potential is going to be there, given the fact that Order do not have any cleanse summoners available. Going to be quite reliant on the protection that the Braum offers, as will the Mordekaiser and the Trundle in their protection duties. But QSS will be a luxury item that we won't see for at least 20 minutes.
So Harry's having a pretty good time in this mid lane matchup still. Picked up the double Doran's blades, you know. Obviously, that's more of a Lane Kingdom type build, right? Just to survive and sustain, especially because he did die for first blood early on, burning his flash as well. But he's come back to this lane, has the level advantage, and doing quite fine.
Yeah, he's opted for the double Doran start, looking to try and find success with the AD into AP matchup. Try to force those duels at any opportunity that is afforded to him, but Direwolves will continue to find that momentum by having lane priority elsewhere and saying, okay, this is what Lee Sin is well known for. Let's potentially start up the dragon, but decides to opt away from it. Actually going to bait out Ayla to say where on earth could he be, and now could actually form a pincer once again as he returns back.
Yep, and we're seeing the Direwolves really want to start this Infernal Drake. Right, this is very characteristic of them, very characteristic of Mir, wanting to start these neutral objectives, but hang on a minute, that's the Pillar ulti combination.
He's got level 6, wants to try and force that fight, puts the exhaust onto shots, wants to try and get that kill, gets stunned! Cannot do anything in that situation, he started it, but it won't finish with him. Vital sidesteps out the CC that comes there from Ayla, not going to fall victim to the passive, but now gets taken into the Death Realm as Swiper uses his teleport advantage to find the 1v1, steals his stats, and now may look for more. The pillar is fantastic, but the disengage is better, and Direwolves will get away with only going 1-for-1.
Yeah, I mean, still you'd have to say not really worth it for Order. Swiper coming in, managed to salvage the situation, but Harry went in there off the Trundle Pillar, wasn't able to get his wind wall up in time to block the Syndra stun. So really well played from Shock. I mean, getting engaged on, nice collapse from Decoy and me, a good peel, but mechanically well played from Shock.
Certainly was, and it's going to give him a nice little spike to assist him in this laning phase. Returns back now with the Seeker's Arm Guard. We talk about value. Well, this is definitely a gold cost-efficient item in that regard. Couple that with the Dark Seal, get a couple of stacks online very early on, and really make sure that the power spike that an AD matchup can have into you is squashed very early on. But this is a positive start here for Order, despite how things have gone, how there is a very small lead, all things considered. They will get the first dragon.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, Swiper's gone back to top lane whilst the lane was frozen and still is frozen. He's still not down that much. He's okay with this, content. Just cheating tempo, waiting for Lee Sin to show on the map before he walks up. Swiper, knowing he doesn't have the ultimate, is very vulnerable.
So as a result of the amount of action that Chippy's has shown elsewhere on the map, he's going to keep things frozen underneath his turret. Force Swiper into an unfortunate situation, which is to hide away in the jungle. That is his lane, nearby the new alcove, on scouting duties, but that doesn't change the tune elsewhere on the map. Now, Vital slightly behind in CS. It's not going to be too bad for Red. It's done a fantastic job CSing underneath his turret, and these are some of the power spikes that we were talking about in that matchup. Looking to sort of skill shot from afar, hit that Sheen power spike, and maybe force some very short burst trades.
Yeah, he's gone to Sheen just to survive lane, right? Just to have enough to trade back in lane so that if something happens around the bot side of the map, Ezreal's just not sitting on the tier. Argument could be made though to get the tier, get the mana immune early, get it stacked up, but you know, Ezreal's faring very fine in this lane. Wukong all in Mordekaiser in the top lane.
Certainly is. He's going to go for that collapse. He has flash, but Swiper does not. R2 goes off, and it will not be enough damage to ensure the kill comes across, but he just struggles with him. He's just playing with his food in the last stretch there before he thought he was safe underneath his tower. Picks that one up. Now Shock goes for fight in mid lane. They had vision on only the entire time. He thought he was setting up the gank, but he is the one to get ganked.
Direwolves are just playing the map so well, and I want to give a special mention to Decoy. Every single time he can dip out of bot lane and come mid, and we talked about the mid being the main focus for this game, and Direwolves are really playing it to a T. Both sides of control, sure they have pink wards in dot push, but Hayri's just having a rough time. Anytime he wants to exchange or trade with Shocker, there's just 3 members on him in the mid lane, and even Only's having a hard time to do anything around mid.
Mid lane was the focus for this game. The draft obviously catered to it as well. And the teams themselves, the players, are definitely playing into that strategy. And you can see here the Rakan paying off big time. You think about above their roaming potential, the Rakan kind of facilitates the same need here.
He might be in trouble.
He may be indeed. He's going to kick away Only to make sure that he can get out with his life, stay healthy, and find value with the fact that he is 3-0. The best possible start for a Lee Sin in the early game.
Yeah, and I say, you know, Lee Sin can be a bait pick sometimes because you have to be so active, and when it comes to the mid game, you've got to have that playmaking ability, and Mia so far picking up all the neutral, or not all of the neutral objectives because they did lose the Infernal Drake, but he's really just been everywhere and consistently pressuring Only. I feels like Only, wherever he goes on the map right now, he's just been spotted, and then even if he manages to find the window where he hasn't been seen, then Decoy is just cheating in River, and this is why we see the Order bot lane have that small CS lead. It's because whenever Decoy leaves lane, Vital has to play safe, has to give up some CS. But as an ADC, you're fine doing that if you're gaining something somewhere else. And all Vital is doing is pressing tab, seeing Yasuo be 0-2-0, and he's really content with being down only 15 CS.
I'm sure the 20 CS equates to a smile on his screen as he sees that discrepancy as you highlight. That means Direwolves at 11 minutes in are up by 2,000 gold. And Shock just continues to unleash the power. Ultimate aside, always looking for opportunities to land a stun. So once again, Only shows face mid lane, but Mir is always there. It's like he reads his opponent's mind.
And
textbook stuff.
And because with this draft, right, that Order you have to play through mid. Like, you do not draft Yasuo to just say, hey, sit at your turret, the game's going to be fine. And so Mir has that in the back of his mind, and he knows he needs to protect Shock, and so does Decoy, and it's just really heads-up play from Direwolves so far. And because the early game went the way it went, they are just so far ahead now that a subjugate is not enough to keep Jungle alive.
They know their win conditions, and they know their opponents as well, and this gives them so much lane pressure, so much rift control at that. They can just run through the jungle uncontested, deploy their Herald, and make sure that what was lost in CS is now equated in turret plates going the way of Vital.
And I mean, you know, we talk about Vital being down a little bit of CS, and you have to say now that CS that is down has been made up because the Rift Herald has been dropped in his lane, and all of a sudden where their pressure point was, or the lead that they had, probably doesn't exist anymore.
Certainly does, and they continue to bully out not only the members of Order, but also their vision control as well, dropping down multiple control walls and ensuring that they always have tabs on where their opponent may be. As Chippies continues to find success here in the top side of the map, opting for the Tiamat as opposed to the Blade of the Ruined King rush that we've seen in times of past ever since Blade of the King was buffed for those melee bruises. Only his second game actually as the Wukong.
Chippies, was it? Only his second game?
Correct, yeah. He's only played one before that. Unfortunately did not get a win with that one. So it's just the continued evolution of this man coming into Split 2.
Yeah, he's definitely opened up his champion pool, right? You know, there's no need to say he can play on now. I mean, after 50 games, of course you can. Opening up, you know, his champion pool to the likes of Wukong and Volibear as well. So Chippy's, who has not necessarily been known for his, you know, tank gameplay and sometimes champion pool diversity, really has a champion ocean now. Teleport coming in though. This is a fight. Skinny.
This is a fight. Order want to contest. What can they find with this one as Decoy opens up with a charm onto 3 members? They just lock them all in place. There is no outplay, there's no counterplay, there's no chance to contest. They do steal away the dragon, but what at cost? I mean, they're just losing members left, right, and center. Chippies comes in with a teleport, finds a double kill with the Cyclone. Harry gets 1 on the score sheet, but is it enough? He needs far more than that to try and become an absolute late game terror. Kick from afar, drive by Tony Hawk style, just skidding through the park, looking so damn clean. 10 kills to 2, everything going the way of the Wolves.
Yeah, I thought that fight started off really well for Order. Harry picking up Shock on the back end of that fight, but watch Decoy here, watch the stun from Shock. Really no hesitation. As soon as the teleport comes through, pulls the trigger. Yasuo is still having some strength in this game, but Chippies is just too strong, landing a double or triple Cyclone onto multiple members, and Rare 7 in the backline can't do anything about it. And we talk about Ezreal needing those 2 items just to play, like, you know, use the utility of the Frozen Fist. Doesn't have that there, and it's very evident, right? Not able to slow anyone, not able to get any relevant damage down. Ezreal sitting on the tier Sheen, not having the team fight impact that, you know, an Aphelios and a Wukong with a Black Cleaver was.
We've definitely seen Ezreal's hit those late game moments where they've got the Iceborne Gauntlet, they've got full 40% CDR, not to mention a Death Dance as well. And they're sitting on around about 200 to 250 armor. Very tanky in their own right, obviously very nimble too. And it's going to be difficult to try and respond to. We're going to be a while away from a situation like that presenting itself. Direwolves can continue driving home their agenda. 15 minutes in, they grow that gold lead now to 5,000. Going to be quite content, I'm sure, turning across 2 dragons to put themselves in a situation like this.
Notable pickups. Phantom Dancer on the Yasuo, Ezreal with the Manamune, but, you know, on the other side of the coin, it's Aphelios with the Infinity Edge and Berserker Creep. So whatever order are picking up right now, Direwolves are just picking up one better.
Certainly are. And this is Shock's main champion this year for a reason. I mean, Shock, a lot of success with it.
I mean, Shock kind of, you know, made a surge in the OPL, becoming one of the top mid laners when Syndra and the likes of Lissandra were in the meta, having some really big standout performances. And Syndra is slowly becoming one of those champions you just can't give Shock.
And Harry is wishing that he just got left alone for a second as we transition from what is the standard laning phase into the side lane split push shenanigans. So much pressure continues though from Direwolves. They afforded so much control of this map. The fact that they can send that many members topside to respond to him and still just control the mid wave and take it down.
Yeah, Herald, second Herald 2, looks like it's going to be going over to the Direwolves. 6,000 gold lead at 16 minutes. Direwolves really putting their foot on this accelerator, and picking up this second Rift Herald is going to spell pretty much another tower dropping. So the onus is really onto Order. At what point are they fighting? What point is it too much to give? Because right now they're just bleeding objectives, and this top tower will be soon to drop.
Interesting to see how Direwolves are playing this one in terms of realizing the power spikes that Order are looking to try and achieve, but not giving them that opportunity to wait and slow down the tempo of this game. No, they are forcing objectives hard. They have taken 2 of the outer turrets so far. They are well on their way to getting a 3rd, and the response from Order so far is, we just want to farm.
Well, and this kind of speaks to what we were talking about before the game, right, with Spawn. Both junglers are Only and Mur. Sometimes, you know, they live and die by their teams, right? If they have some good games, face check.
3 versus 2. Order do not seem to care. The pillar goes out. The combo comes out as a result. The charm lands, and Harry is just CC'd for a good 5 seconds right there. Romin's going to jump in and he's going to do whatever he can, but Exhaust goes left and Exhaust goes right. Everybody's slowed, but everybody's surviving as they just run back to their turrets and shake their hands.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit anticlimactic there, but yeah, what we were talking about before the game was how both these junglers really kind of carry their teams to victory, or if they don't get rolling, then the games sometimes are over a little quick. And Mir having one of those games we talked about where just setting the pace, getting his team an advantage in almost every single lane, while Only was just second to every play, getting caught out around mid lane, and it really felt like Mir was just reading a picture book and knew where Only was going at all points of the game. And it started as early as level 3, right? Counter jungling that red buff, and really just having eyes on Only for a majority of the game.
I mean, that has to be the biggest turning point, right? It's funny to say a turning point at the start of a game, but the fact that he went for the double buff acquisition into a red buff steal, into a 3-man collapse on mid, beautifully coordinated play. A passenger play that really speaks to the strength that we knew Direwolves for, and something that we're starting to see them return to coming in here for Split 2, and to bring it up against a formidable opponent like Order, and to show the sort of the discrepancy, it's a big teleform right now.
I mean, you know what's crazy too is if Only doesn't do that Raptor camp, he potentially finds Lee Sin on his red with a level advantage. So, you know, potentially it flips the script, but here we are. Direwolves picking up their first dragon of the game. This is the second soul, that Ocean Soul we've seen today as well, and it's going to be a far way away before Direwolves get close to that Ocean Soul. So potentially we see 20-minute Baron started from Direwolves, or if they're just happy, you know, trading waves, bouncing waves, and waiting for Aphelios to hit those 2 items.
He's definitely well on his way to hitting that point there, Juge. You'd see that the Aphelios is having a field day over the Ezreal counterpart, and this is really going to make life Just a little bit more frustrating for him to try and get himself online. 1,000 gold lead discrepancy, as you can see there, but the biggest has to be between both top and jungle. Really highlighted by the fact the amount of impact they've had, not only with teleport ganks, but just right place, right time.
Yeah, and this is the Direwolves that we saw, you know, make that late surge in the gauntlet, right? Last split. They were just able to really put the pedal to the metal and have some really good early games off the back of their mid laner, off the back of their jungler. And whilst they had, you know, a hiccup early on in this split, they're managing to find their footing and find their form and pretty much separate themselves if this game keeps going the way that it is as the third best team.
Now, as we were speaking of Jubes, this really is as clear example as to how far apart these two AD carries are. 2 items achieved here by the Aphelios. Rare still so far away from not only evolving the Muramana, but also getting himself online with what could be the Trinity Force or the Iceborne Gauntlet. If there was ever a time for Vital to pop off, have those moments that make it his most played champion, we're looking at seeing that happen now.
Yeah, and the you know, the scary thing here is that we really don't see Vital make many mistakes. We don't see him really ever out of position, and usually when a team fight goes array, it's Vital the last one standing. So you can bet your money that he's going to be one of the last ones alive and the ones that are still pumping DPS. And scary times if you're an Order fan, because potentially this top lane turret drops and it's going to be about a 7,000 gold lead.
Big Value Town achieved in the top side there. 2 turrets fall as a result of the headbutt getting successful headbutts off. And that just opens up the map even further, making it harder and harder for Order to achieve CS safely. Direwolves just really owning this rift. It belongs to them. 5 turrets to 1, 10 kills to 2. The numbers speak for themselves here, Juice.
Yeah, now Skimmy, at a certain point, when you're just dropping turrets for fun, you have to pull the trigger. You just can't lose everything until there's nothing left, right? Because the more outer turrets you lose, and they've pretty much lost all of them now, but the harder it is for you to contest Baron. So now Baron becomes a realistic possibility for the side of Direwolves. You know, potentially they're happy playing towards this next dragon, but the fact that you have no vision control in the top side of the map on your next respawn, and if Direwolves move in and clear it out, is scary, because who's going to be able to face check? Is it Only? We've seen Only get one shot by Shock on the Syndra, so game is getting out of control really fast.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it begs the question now in terms of there is no clear definitive steal or decisive urgency, if you will, to try and steal one of those dragons, as neither team is sitting on a sole point. Baron, potentially, as you say, and with the amount of vision they've unlocked with this mid to top side of the map, the denial of vision could be very real, and the ability to try and force them into an unfortunate situation where they have to face check, get kills, and just do what is the common Baron dance. But I start to wonder here, right, as to what are Order really looking for. There's some major breaking points. Yes, Rare has now hit those 2 for himself, but you know, the likes of Hayri were looking for that 100% crit chance.
Look, the Order have done a pretty good job in getting, you know, enough defensive vision to know whether Direwolves are on Baron. You know, they have that ward in the mid lane, right? So they can see Vital. They know he's not out of vision anywhere. They have some good pink wards on their red buff, but there's no real item spike that's going to come through that really pivots this game, because you're just down 7,000 gold really early on into the game. What Order need to do is what they're doing right now. You see Hayri in the side lane pushing the wave in. Hang on a minute, might be Brauncourt in the mid lane.
They played that one quite nice.
Yep,
Red
good
jumps across and allows Ayla to jump on 2.
But see,
burn any summoners there.
So what they're doing is they're pushing that top wave in. Someone from Direwolves has to go answer. And when that's the case, they can look to force on mid lane here with the pillar, with the Yasuo ulti. We see Yasuo coming to the group now, so potentially we see them look for something.
They have a bit of ability to hard force fights right now. Azonia's from the Syndra, a QSS from Chippies to deny the Death Realm from Mordecai as well. Double Black Cleaver and a Death Stance just for good measure, as well as the Shurelius to enforce the fact that Decoy continues to just charm as many people as possible with his dazzling plays. They're now going to put themselves on the second Dragon of the game and the second Ocean at just that.
Yeah, and because we look at item spikes, right? And you know, I'm getting excited now because I see the Infinity Edge come through on the Yasuo, but then you see the Zhonya's picked up by the Syndra, and it doesn't obviously negate the Infinity Edge, but you know, your synergy of...
too.
Sorry?
it does a lot to negate it, right?
Yeah, but then you see the synergy of the pillar into Yasuo ulti that's going to get Zhonya's. I'm sure Rakan's just going to charm, Wukong's going to use the ultimate, but we see the Baron start here from Direwolves.
Swiper has gone for the recall, wants to go for a purchase, he purchases the Zhonya's, he can now TP into this fight, and here he is, Baron down to 4k, getting closer and closer to smite range.
Nice
He tabs on Chips in the top side, looking for that flank, looking for a Cyclone, looking to lock as many members in place. Here he goes for the fight, goes for the situation, exhausted, dead, no power spike, no chance. Had that flash button, is unable to use it. However, Swiper did find that key target. He eliminates Vital, had to burn double summons to try and survive in that death realm, but it will not be enough. He packs a big punch. Yeah. 2 item spike for the Mordekaiser. They are banking on the success of this one, and despite Mir hitting the kick, is very reluctant to go on through. You can understand why, with a shield that provides so much mitigation that expires, and so does his health bar. The Baron dance is successful.
Not as clean as you would like from Direwolves, right? You know, having a pretty substantial gold lead, flashing health bars, Vital ends up going down. Mordekaiser really hitting a power spike there, but watch this kick from Mir. So they stay on the Baron, but they know they can't finish it. Reason being is Mordekaiser can ultimate Lee Sin, and then Lee can't land the smite, but really clean kick onto Yasuo. He doesn't flash it, doesn't even get an ultimate, doesn't get the last breath off, and we see Chippy's in the backline, pretty much soloing out Rare 7, and the strength of this Wukong is nothing to be scoffed at, and Swiper's just playing, you know, playing deterrence, knows he's going to fall down here, hoping his team can clean up, but Mir and Shock able to take him down, and it's a 3-for-1, and Direwolves extend that gold lead.
The amount of pressure that both solo laners, especially from the top side there, were able to influence that fight with the fact that both went for the solo kill on those AD carries and really took them out of the fight very early on, but then Shock was coming up clean with the mid difference between the two of them.
But this is what we talk about, right? When we talk about Lee Sins and needing to have like a positive and big impact on the game, it's not the easiest thing to do, right? You know, Yasuo has flash there, so in his mind, he's going to flash if Lee Sin goes to kick him, but there's just levels to Lee Sin gameplay, and the fact that Mir was able to get Harry into the middle of his team, not use the last breath, because potentially that fight changes if Harry gets an ultimate off, right? Like, that was a close fight.
Yeah, certainly was. And life will not be easier for these AD carries, as Chippy's now gets himself a Last Whisper, has so much armor shred at this stage of the game. Yes, Ezreal was going armor. Yes, the same could be said true for Swiper as well. So matching the 1v1, the side lane catch, going for the fight. It's all looking good right now, as Direwolves actually force Order out of their base.
Yeah, they're just forced away from their turret, and
they'll look to try and start this fight off regardless. Glacial Fissure goes out, a lock 2 in place. That's going to be the Cyclone 2-man clone as a result of everybody getting locked in place right there. Swiper doing whatever he can to be the behemoth, be the titan that he is nicknamed for, but left without his team around him. The stopwatch expires, and the team run back to the protection of the mid lane inhibitor.
Direwolves just playing around their priority really well, right? And this is the thing Direwolves do well. They're using the mid lane, forcing Order to make a decision. Order obviously wanted to get Dragon Vision of some sorts. That's how they got forced out of their base, but Direwolves said, you have that vision, we'll take your inhibitor turret. And when you put pressure on your enemy like that, you force them to make a decision, and the decision Order came to was an unfavorable team fight, right? Starting with a Braum engage, not the best tool to use. Seeing another fight break out here.
Trying to engage. Ooh. He's actually going to get engaged upon, but so beefy in his nature, he survives and gives Harry another kill, taking down Miru, getting themselves a beautiful amount of bounty gold as well. And that's what they're going to continue to bank on here, Dupes, to give themselves a fighting chance. Continue to invest resources in this man. Forget about the early game. Try and transition mid to late.
Do you want optimistic, Dupes?
Hit me with it.
Okay, losing that inhibitor potentially is not that bad for Order. Okay, like if they manage to stall that out, maybe pick up one more shutdown, then we're going to see the gold lead close. Now, Direwolves obviously are going to have an insane amount of map pressure. They're going to get the next dragon, and they're going to start up the Baron. But if Order are able to not lose anything and just stop the bleeding, then this potentially is the best case scenario for them.
Let's see if they can reach a situation that is much to be that narrative. Definitely, Chippies has forgotten about that 0-7 gangplank from last week. He is well and truly online and showcasing Feast or Famine. This is a namestay play. He is a franchise player for the Direwolves and continues to find opportunities as he connects and collapses upon the opponents with decoys Rakan.
Syndra's
Mid lane
hurting.
Cryo is the major objective at this stage. As you say, next dragon is available. Direwolves will be on 3 Ocean Dragons.
Yep.
The sustain would be unreal.
And it really looks like, yeah, Order want to contest, but in my mind, this isn't their dragon to contest. Rakan goes in.
They're stunned, they're charmed, they're dazzled. It's looking good right now. They have no chance of trying to emit their own force of play because they're just locked in such a long passage of C. Swiper takes Rakan into the death throne, but it's only going to be 1 for 2. Evens out to a 2 for 2, but it's the battle of the AD carries as to who can put out more pressure. Double kills for the both of them, as it won't be as clear-cut as just transitioning from a fight, dragon, and into a Baron.
I mean, you'd have to say it's really not that bad for Order yet again, is it? Because they're not going to lose the Baron. The dragon already went down, and it's a 3 for 2 sure, but let's see how this played out. So Swiper ultis the Rakan to start off here, right? Rakan pulling the trigger, going in, but keep your eyes on Yasuo in this team fight. They're just kiting it back. Wukong goes onto Chippy. Chippies goes onto Harry. Yasuo gets double knocked up. Mordekaiser is just an absolute raid boss in the backline, and Harry gets a nice 2-man knock up and managing to pick up the Lee Sin as well, and Chippies has to bail. So again, the order carries, playing team fights okay considering gold deficit.
And it is interesting noting what Swiper's priority is with his ultimate, right? The fact that he's trying to break up the CC train by taking out Rakan as soon as he uses his ultimate to try and charm everybody. Is there an argument to say he should be going for Vital? Should he be going for Chippies to protect Ezreal? Well, you know, Rare is definitely at that point now with these 4 items in his pocket that he is very much self-sufficient in his ability to do what he pleases.
And so now we'll see Direwolf set up here for the Baron, and this is where the game becomes dangerous, right? Who face checks in the side of Order? Because what Order want to do, Order want to have backline access. The Yasuo needs to get a knock up on the back end and be able to get the last breath off for any chance to win the team fight. But if you have no vision and you're just face checking, then the risk of them engaging on you and the Rakan getting a 3 or 4 man knock up is huge.
Well, how do Order look to try and calm their nerves in this situation? Direwolves know. 3 minutes to Ocean Soul. 4 to their name. Absolutely unheard of. The dream of all dreams, and we rank those dragons apart. Swiper does what he can to create pressure elsewhere on the map, pushes bot lane, and gets a turret. He does have the teleport in. The Baron dance starts up once again, down to half. They are posturing, they are dancing, they are looking to make things happen right now. Out comes the Death Run once again onto the Rakan. Yep. He can't charm everybody this time, and he may just be left to the Wolves. Hashtag Wolfpack working against them this time. And that might be all Order need to say, okay, you've stopped the Baron.
Swiper's really identifying his role in this game extremely well. If you take Rakan out of the equation, Wukong then becomes solo engaged on the backline, and Chippies can just get absolutely one-shot. So, you know, whilst Order are behind, they're playing these, Baron exchanges or Vision exchanges, if you will, extremely well. And, you know, Direwolves, again, have to reset and figure out what to do next, but you know, Ezreal's picked up his 3 items, has the QSS now, much like the Yasuo, so whilst the gold lead is in the favor of Direwolves, Order have done an extremely good job in shrinking it and keeping themselves in this game.
And this is exactly where we were hard on, right? The fact that they didn't have any of those summoner cleanses. We talked about this in the laning phase as to it'd be about 20 minutes, give or take, before those QSS started to come online to give them that ability for the self-sufficient playstyle. And these are the moments that an Ezreal works towards.
You still have to...
the chance to see what his armor is at. He's going to have so many resistances.
You still have to be a little bit concerned when you look at this Aphelios, right? Has 3 items now, Death Dance being picked up, and might be the battle of the 80 carries, Skimmy.
Certainly is. There's no denying the strength both rosters have in the 80 carry role as well as the mid lane. We've definitely hyped it up to be a mid lane matchup. But as the game continues, we know what ADCs can do with a few items under their belt.
Or the deep TP.
What they're both about.
Really deep TP, Skimmy.
Keep an eye. That is Chippies coming in from the enemy red buff. Now going to do a drive-by through mid lane. Look to try and make something happen. Decoy jumps in to start off the engage. Buying so much time for a Cyclone to come on out. He's going to get exhausted as he jumps in, but the whole Order jump up into the air like a bouncy castle. But I tell you what, they are not having fun because they've lost 2 members so far. They're going to lose a 3rd, and it's looking like potentially an ace is about to happen here as Harry used the stopwatch, but his life bar will disappear. He dashes away from the minions. A 1v1 happens between the ADCs, and Rare flexes him with the emote. He will be the sole survivor, but they can't play for the soul in 15 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying how scary this Aphelios looked, and if you watch how the team fight played out, he absolutely seized the tender. The wind wall went up, and I thought that was just enough to win them the team fight because it looked early on like Vital was just throwing shurikens into the wind wall, but they seemed to step past that order, and what was a really resilient kind of mid-game from them has turned into an Ocean Soul for the Direwolves. So really nice team fight from them, really good pickup. And the deep TP from Chippies is MVP in this team fight. You see him channeling that TP and the on-the-way pings, and Order have no idea that that teleport's coming on through. All Direwolves are trying to do is keep them interested here. Rakan goes in, again gets Mordekaiser ulted, but watch Chippies in the backline, gets exhausted straight away. Doesn't matter because the CC is just enough. Knocks up 3 to 4 members, goes down eventually, but watch Aphelios here. Flashing forward, uses his stopwatch to perfection as well. Ari ends up falling down, and Rare 7 does a good job to pick up Vital in the backline, but Ocean Soul, you can't complain about that.
Certainly can't, and it begs the question now as to can they out-heal the damage that comes the way of Order. The amount of CC they are laying on top of them before the fight can even start, then to try and turn around and play without this Grievous to try and turn it in their favor. What are we looking when we check in with that department? A Bramble Vest here on Swiper. He's been a big catalyst for trying to turn these fights around with some very clutch Death Realms, but for the sake of where else that could come for them in the draft, well, Rare is now sitting on the last Whisper himself and will no doubt be looking to try and turn that into a Mortal Reminder as quick as possible. Baron is available, and Order once again will have to be impeccable with their vision control to try and catch out members.
There's almost an argument to be made, Skimmy, that Mordekaiser should really be ulting the Wukong. I mean, Wukong has QSS now, so, you know, throw that one in the bin, but prior to that, I think Wukong was doing much more in the team fights than Rakan was, soloing out, you know, majority of the Order backline.
He's had that QSS for a while now, but has definitely been quite content with how things have been working. Saying, sure, you can target our support, I'll continue to do tons of damage. Look at his items at this stage of the game. He's an absolute monster. This is the Chippies that we know and love. Once again, it's a mid lane fight with Chippies on the flank like the fight from prior. They turn onto him, he cyclones onto 2, goes for the clone, locks in place. Now 3 members. Aphelios from downtown will spread AoE like you just would not believe. And Swiper runs in 1v5, once again acting as a pseudo tank. Is it a death from? Well, he's actually in the death from. The graveyard spawns on his head. The team once again run back to the protection of their respawn mid inhibitor. But Direwolves have their sights set on ending this game.
Chippies is having such a good game on this Wukong. Without fail, every time he's finding backline access, and he's just creating so much chaos, because if this game is just pure front to back, we've seen Order really win some skirmishes and win some team fights, but the fact that Wukong is not letting Rare 7 just put his foot in the sand and throw down some damage, the fact that Chippies is just giving Hayri so much to think about means that they aren't able to play the team fight on their terms.
Baron is being absolutely shredded right now. There is a jungler in the area, but nowhere near to contest there with a smite steal. The fight will now start. Ocean Soul and Baron Direwolves so damn online, so damn strong as a result. Ooh, look at their health bars, they survive. But Ray on the flank, that's a big one. Takes out Shock. Now can he find an avenue to get on top of Vital? Only is forced to disengage away. He survives for the meantime, has no sustain, and is forced to try and play pillar duties from afar. Vital is going for the absolute 1v2 lane kingdom situation where he has the guns, and he has the soul, and he has that damn sustain. Very hard to try and take him out of this fight. Order forced away from their base, and Dive will say, let's run it straight down mid.
Yeah, I mean, Ocean Soul really coming to fruition there, keeping Vital topped up while he was 1v1ing Mordekaiser in the ult, and potentially this might be game because we see Rakan stalling bases, but Yasuo makes it back. Pillar, ulti.
Henry is here, looking for that last breath. It's already been used, looking for an opportunity where he can make something happen. Locks Toon in the air. The 2v2 is looking so damn good for the boys. They just don't take any damage, but they definitely put out the damage, to tell you that much. One Nexus turret fell on down. The second for sure. And the rest of the boys have done a fantastic job in delaying those recalls. No chance to defend, and it will be Direwolves seeing daylight and taking down Order.
I mean, it was looking like a very early shower for the Order lineup, right? It was a very quick game, but Order managed to stall the game out, but still very clean, very concise game from Direwolves. Probably took them a little bit longer to close it out than they would have liked, but a very good team performance. You know, I couldn't fault one member on that team. Decoy really good on the engages, Vital coming to fruition in the mid game. You know, Shock and Mia having a really good jungle mid early game, and Chippy's finding a backline access almost all of the time.
Certainly was a composition that found success from the very formation of that game. 3 minutes in, just the influence that junglers can have, despite sometimes the hate that they get or the flames that happen in solo queue. They definitely put out a performance that was worthwhile of praise. And that's going to do it for our second game of the night. But we've still got plenty of bangers up after the break. Our third game of the night. It's going to be a battle between Gravitas and Mammoth.
Today is the NeoSurf Cup, and we're going to be playing against Misfits, so hopefully we can bring home the win.
NeoSurf is simple, safe, and secure. You can go to your local shop and get a voucher code and use it online, preferably to buy League of Legends skins.
He's got it! This is deadly! He's got it!
Welcome to the 2020 OPL. I am Nick Boy Richardson.
And that's a beautiful hemo play. Got to multiple members. He gets himself a double kill. It's Ray's doing what he does. The team fight king.
We love everybody. We love the OPL.
If you're craving the taste of your favourites, head to Macca's for a fast, safe and contactless drive-through experience. For your Macca's run, contact free, we'll be here.